Doug? Hey, guys. Is this really tall? There we go. So, yeah, another combine. Uh, before we get going, I just wanted to, we just got done with our meetings, 15 days. Wanted to thank Matt Berry, Trent Kirshner, Scott Fitter. We had like all of our scouts and especially like our video staff. It was phenomenal meetings. Just getting prepared. Like I feel like we're really like this combine in general. Excuse me, having more time to get prepared. Like we're ready to roll. So I just wanted to thank those guys. So it's on your time.
Did anything that happened last year change anything in terms of how you approach this offseason, how you look at the draft, how you look at free agency, wanting to get aggressive in free agency or anything like that?
You know, we are aggressive in free agency. We just don't do a lot of deals lately. So we try to pride ourselves in being involved in a lot of deals, and then deciding whether what our threshold is for those deals, and whether that's our own players, and then obviously what that looks like, free agency looks like with in terms of acquisition. But I would say the first part of your question really. You're constantly evaluating what you're doing and trying to reset and refocus.
Change what you look for here and what you do in free agency?
It doesn't really, because you're just constantly trying to make smart decisions. We have to look out for not, just 2017. We're looking out for 18 and 19. I know you guys get tired of me talking about it, but we want to be a consistent championship caliber team. We don't want to cruise in for it. And like, hey, they're going to take a run. We want to be there every single year, having our fans feel like these guys are busting their tails to get us back to the Super Bowl and be world champions.
Along those same lines, we've seen the salary cap, keep going up, and I'm wondering what impact has that had on the free agency landscape? Because
a lot, yeah. So. It's an ongoing process, moving puzzle, trying to make sure you can try to hang on to your top players all the time. Your core, we view as our core players. A lot of times when we do those deals, we're like, hey, look, there's going to be some tough decisions that are made. There's going to be some guys that have to leave. And it's just part of the game. But this year in particular, I think you see there's a huge discrepancy in terms of cap space with a number of teams. So it's what the NFL is about, man. It's about parity, and so you have those teams that are just going to be able to do that much more than you possibly can, right? So it's all about trying to move those pieces around and try to stay in the game with those guys as much with the free agents and your own free agents as long as you possibly can.
what about in terms of what's out there for the teams that do have money?
That's what I'm saying. You got a number of teams that have just a ton of cap room, and that's why the NFL is what makes it such a great league, is because now they have these teams that have that opportunity to, get back to where they want to be. That's the challenge of being a consistent championship caliber team, right? You got to make those decisions, make the hard decisions, and try to be wise in terms of who you go after in free agency, and putting, trying to put that, know what your threshold level is.
You mentioned the number of transitional issues from college to pro, which everyone has been talking about for years. Do you find that you are more likely to take a player and say, okay, he's going to need a year, but it'll be worth it, than you would have maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it depends on the position. Offensive line. Yeah, I mean, we go to when you go to colleges and you're talking to a bunch of different coaches. I mean, they struggle to find offensive linemen, and all these guys, everybody wants to play quarterback and running back and defensive line. It's just like kind of how the football culture is right now. Like, guys aren't like, the majority of guys aren't like, I'm going to come out and be the best offensive lineman in high school football. You know what I mean? They want to sack the quarterback, you know what I mean? So, I think that's the one position where you're like, look at us. When we played with George Fant last year, I mean, God bless him, but holy cow, the guy was playing basketball, and he's out there playing against Robert Quinn, so good luck.
You're more inclined to do that on the field as opposed to redshirting a guy.
Sure, and it's tougher now. We don't have we don't have NFL Europe. We don't have a developmental league right now. So you look at the quarter, you can throw quarterbacks in there as well. You don't have guys getting those reps. The time is limited. With the coaching staff and our collective bargaining agreement right now. So, your number one quarterback's taking as many reps as he possibly can. So it's a little bit harder for a guy like Boykin to get his reps in too.
At him briefly, and any regrets about cutting him, seeing how he performed in New Orleans?
Yeah, I'd be lying to you if I said different. I think that his leadership would have been outstanding for us. I think we got in a position where, we probably got a little bit too young, and so with us, that offensive line thing's all about acquisition, the mix in the room between, veteran leadership and talent, but that cohesion that goes along with it. So I think, some of the best offensive lines I've been around and best teams, quite frankly, are those guys that have a core group of offensive linemen. So we have to have that mentality. So we have to bring these young guys along like we did last year. We brought a bunch of, rookies, second-year guys, moved Britt to center, that sort of thing. But they have to have that cohesion, so in Kansas City we had Tim Grunhard, Will Shields, and Dave Zott. Those guys were played together for a long time. Criswell was there for a number of years too. In Green Bay, you had Mike Flanagan, Wall, Rivera, Clifton, and Tauscher. So, and those guys played together for a long time, and that's that group in particular is like a group that has to play with that cohesion and really have that level of confidence in each other. Sorry, Bob.
Add veterans to the offensive line this offseason, or does the fact that those guys got so much time last year, you can sort of let that group grow? Or
yeah, I think that's a good. Yeah, I think we'd like to add some experience to that position. He was asking about Jari. Jari would have been. He was great. I mean, the guy came to camp with us. He did a great job. While he was here, mentoring some of the younger guys. He was. And if he was sitting right here, I'd say the same thing. But we were a little bit, concerned about his durability, being an older player, and so we were just going to see how it went, getting through that first week of the season. So, but he went back there right away and did a great job.
How would you like to see the backfield? I mean, the running back touches split up between, I guess, Prosise and Hall?
How would I like to see it? It doesn't really matter. It's up to Pete. No. We lost Thomas, last year, and that did set us back. And then our quarterback was injured, so that took a number of our rushing yards away. CJ needs to prove that he can be a reliable guy physically. He's doing a great job this offseason, I guess. So, but in terms of splitting it up, it's way too early to be talking about that.
Hey John, just a general quarterbacking question, kind of dating back to even when you brought Matt in. When a front office is looking at bringing another backup or a guy who has some NFL film, yeah, okay. How important is that familiarity, I guess, that a personnel department has with, either a quarterback they trade for or sign to bring in and kind of be that guy or compete to be that guy?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it's part of. It's like when we have coaches on from different staffs and everything. It's like getting to know that person. The hardest thing that we have to do is and that's why we're here, is trying to get to know that person at his core. And so, I had been around Matt, so that was kind of and we had T-Jack too. So, Daryl had coached T-Jack, and Sidney. We had Sidney Rice there at the time too. So, having that relationship with people and getting to know who they are at their core, it helps a ton, especially at the quarterback position. I mean, you're putting. It's a big deal.
John, without having too much time with these players, as
you tan, man, huh?
Yeah, vacation. Not having too much time with these players, how do you evaluate their competitive toughness that core to what you guys do? And
here?
Yeah, here and just in this whole process, how competitive they are, or do you just look to get the best players and hope that they then assimilate into the culture that you guys built up there?
No, I think there's a lot of things that you can see and evaluate here that are, how do they handle themselves with their leadership groups. We have scouts, personnel guys that lead these, individual groups. How do they handle themselves, within those groups? How do they conduct themselves? Do they conduct themselves like a pro? Do they compete? Are they going to go out there and have a pec injury? from about 2 weeks ago, but I'm going to push through it, and I'm going to, being smart about it, don't get me wrong, but I am going to bench. I'm just going to compete in everything. Really, that's kind of our, like, what are they? And you can see it. You can tell the guys, like, when we interview them in the room, and then when you get out there and you watch them perform.
Two 49er executive-related questions. One was just about John Lynch. Obviously, he's in a unique position.
John who?
John Lynch.
Listen, he's a great dude.
And just if you could speak to, I assume you've known him through the years.
Yeah.
If he might be ready for this, it's a bit of a daunting challenge. And then I understand you're one of the people that holds Adam Peters in high regard as well. Can you just talk about those two guys?
Well, first with John, I mean, we played in Toronto several years ago, and I was able to sit down with him and just like write down a ton of notes, pick his brain about the safety position. And safety position is one of the harder positions in college football to evaluate. So it was great for me to be able to sit down with him and just kind of talk through like what you're thinking and get his thoughts on everything, right? So I got all my notes down, and then it's funny to me, he kept doing the TV thing, and he'd come around and we were just able to talk ball. He's just a football guy, football junkie. Really good person, and obviously they're getting a great leader. And Adam's just a grinder. I mean, he's out there, beating the bushes and scouting his tail off. So, and a great personality. Like, he's a fun guy to be around.
John, we've seen how the spread offense has changed high school football, college football.
Yeah, grade school football too. Yeah.
Is there such thing as an NFL prototypical player anymore with some of these 20 years we're seeing, some of the guys who are so versatile?
That's a great question. Sometimes you think about, okay, where are we going? What's the NFL going to look like in 10, 15 years when my son's playing in sixth grade football and they're playing the spread and they're all looking at the sidelines and getting reading numbers and cards and stuff. Like, are we going to call plays in the huddle anymore? It's a really good question. It's a very hard one to answer. I think from a perimeter standpoint, we're probably going to see a lot of the same things. But I think from an interior standpoint, I think things may change a little bit. I can't tell you how, but if we're gonna keep going this direction, I mean, this is the talent pool that we're dealing with. I mean, these guys, they're coming in the league. Like, there aren't a lot of guys that are coming in this league that know who like Larry Allen is. You know what I mean? Just Nate Newton, like a big, So that's kind of how we're evolving a little bit. You're seeing like a quicker, maybe a little bit lighter, excuse me, type of dude.
In terms of evaluation, though, things like this, we've always heard, all the prototypical size and all these things. We saw how quickly, I guess, the college level was adapting to the spread offense. Why is it? Do you feel it's taking a long time for the NFL to try and adapt to some of these guys, these twins, these real preferences that you probably know?
Well, you just don't have a lot of time with these guys, right? Like, you get these young guys in, you got to get them ready to go. So, we're blessed. We have a really good coaching staff, teachers. They're willing to play young people. So, I mean, I think it's just about your teachers and whether they're able to see the positives in the players. The easiest thing we do is talk about, this guy can't do this and he can't do that, and it's kind of that's just the easiest thing to do. Like, we look for like positives and what we can accentuate with this guy. What sort of talents does he bring to us that, like, hey, we're going to put this guy in a position to do A, B, and C. So that's probably the biggest thing that you're talking about. Like, how do we implement this guy, and what's he used to? And he has to be smart. He has to be tough. He's got to be reliable. Reliable meaning he's got to be able to show up for work every day, and he can't be a jag-off. Can you say that? Sorry.
Hey, John, signing Blair Walsh, how did that come about? And I guess, does that mean Hauska is probably not?
No, it doesn't mean that. I think it's really, quite honestly, it's a aspect of like unrestricted free agency. You have all your boxes to check, and I know it seems kind of cold, and we take it personally because we have such a personal relationship with these guys. Steven's been phenomenal, for us. He's done a lot of great things for the Seahawks. We had an opportunity to kind of check a box in free agency with Blair, and we'll be looking for somebody else to come in and compete as well, too. It could be Steven, I'm not sure. But with Blair, he was a guy that we had as we call them reserve future signings. He was still out there. A number of teams wanted to sign him. We brought him in, worked him out, and got a deal done. And it's kind of like just checking that box, like, okay, we'll take a deep breath, and then we can move on to what's next. You know, so I mean, you go through free agency, you know, you have Plan A, but there's 25 other letters in the alphabet. You know what I mean? We got like a whole slew of things going on.
You talked about how safeties are so tough to evaluate in college. It's become such a sub-package league. Do you have like more delineated scouting ideals for a slot corner or a hybrid safety? Are there new positions that maybe you didn't have a decade ago?
No, I think it's just accentuating those guys' strengths. I think you're seeing a number of teams like Dayon, like for instance, down in Mark Barron, like those kind of guys. Just there's always going to be guys that are, you know, kind of that tweener type. They could play will, but they can also play strong safety. And then if they're athletic enough, they can maybe go play in a slot and cover a guy, play a nickel. But I think it's just like the talent pool every year. And then how do you picture this guy fitting in? And that's really, I don't think you're looking for different things. It's just like this is what we have to work with. Now let's evaluate them, let's rank them, and let's try to fit them into our system. How do you guys see us using them?
You know, the slot guy was the short guy who couldn't run, and now he's a starter. Now he's going up against Larry Fitzgerald and Julian Jones.
Yeah, not with teams that I've been with. You know, we look for longer. You know, you don't want to have dudes like me playing with my height, playing, you know, Larry Fitzgerald, pretty good player. So.
How big's the delta now? How big's the delta now between offensive lineman prospects and what you need them to be, what they're ready to do right now at this combine, and what you need them to be in your offense?
Well, there's just a dearth at the position. It just has been for a number of years now. There aren't a lot of guys that. I mean, you just have to be really careful, like figuring out those guys that have the mental aptitude first to come in and learn everything, and I think you saw it throughout the season with some of our younger guys. You know, like there's a lot of stuff happening in there, and they have to figure it out. They got to be able to communicate, and they got to. They just have to gel, you know, and so being able to identify those players that can come in and work within that room, and obviously we feel like we're blessed because we feel like we have one of the if not the best offensive line coach in the league, right? So he feels like he can put you out there, you know what I mean? So not really, but yeah, no, but no, he's got a very positive mindset about improving people and coaching them up.
How much do you rely on Cable to just do it? Here's what you got. You can make it work.
So we went through. You saw with JR. We've had a couple other guys that we've worked with where you get to a certain point in the draft and there's just you're kind of out of people, and so you're just looking for what are the positive attributes with this guy that we think would help him make the transition. And Tom's very open-minded about doing that. Like, hey, if he bends well, if he's really quick, he's tough, he's smart, and he can move laterally, whatever. Yeah, Tom, we rely on him big time for that. I mean, he's the guy that's got to be spending as much time, 14 hours a day with these guys. So, we rely on him big time.
Your court.
I'm interested in how you sense your application of your own instincts in this whole process. I mean, obviously, you've got the data that you can go on and the tape.
Did you just try to make me start sweating right there? No. Yeah, no.
How you develop your sense and what you rely on, and how you trust your own instincts when it comes to separating.
The Vince Lombardi, proper preparation prevents poor performance. Really, it's like we're just gonna outwork you. We're gonna work. So we're just gonna keep going and keep going and keep going, and not thinking that we have all the answers. And then just being able to say, look, we're at a place where it's not player A, it's player C, and we thought it was player A for a long time. So that could be 3 weeks from now. It could be 5 weeks from now. But it's just a constant process. We really do not shut our doors on our draft board until the night before.
Can you even define your instincts? Like when you're in the process and you've been weeks evaluating guys, are there situations where things come up and you just kind of have a hunch and you rely on
I think hunch and trying to learn from your mistakes. Learning what's gone well, I think is a big one. I think where I've made the biggest mistakes personally is when I compare individuals to other players, and they're not the same people. They're not the same people at their core. That's where I feel like, or you feel like, you do push the need. Everybody's like, well, we're not going to draft for need. Well, in this day and age, you kind of have to. You know what I mean? So I think it's just, I would say, just, praying on it, work ethic, and then, learning from your mistakes and trying to accentuate those positives that you've learned along the way.
You talked earlier about keeping your core guys. You're going into this offseason with very few free agents in terms of your starters, front lines, and guys. How much does that help this whole offseason process when you know most of those guys are back?
It really helps. It's really it's a great question, but it never stops. It's just like this constant jigsaw puzzle, and you're trying to you're trying to get better every single day, and so. Once we do get a deal done with somebody, we're just moving on to the next thing. And then that's not including the things that pop up, the issues that pop up along the way that you're not necessarily expecting. Bill Polian told me right when I got 7, 8 years ago now, he told me when I got the job, I'm like, hey, any advice you can give me? He's like, yeah, there's going to be 10 things that come across your desk that you weren't ready for that day, right? So it's not as much of a checklist, if you will. It's kind of like, you have, like I said, you have your plan A, but then there's all this stuff that keeps popping up, and all of a sudden you're on plan E, like that. So it definitely helps, but it's always about what's coming next, and that's my job is to be, and our job as a personnel staff is to be strategizing about, what's coming, what's down the road for us.
How convinced are you that Blair Walsh is over his mental struggles that he had, and how big of a discussion was that?
It was a discussion. Yeah, I'd be lying if I told you it wasn't. But he was a very confident guy on his on his visit, and he's had the year before he was a Pro Bowler, I believe. So I mean he's gone on a streak where I think he hit 17 to 17, and he's just he's got a lot of talent, and there's certain boxes that we had to check before we move forward with it.
About having some surgery, what the details of that, or what? I'm sure you.
Yeah, I'm not getting it into the surgeries and stuff, but it went well. Those guys are doing great. Yeah, those guys are doing great. He's an amazing kid. Earl's doing great. I think that both those. Well, Tyler's up there right now. Earl's supposed to be coming back for just a checkup here in the next month. John? Yeah, I was. I'd be honest with you. I mean, I don't know. It's a pretty good job on TV, I guess you'd think, right? No, I was at first, but then when you sit back and you look at it, I mean, the guy's the ultimate competitor. I would think he misses, I would think I don't want to speak for him, but I would think he'd miss the team aspect, working with other people, the self-sacrifice, everything that goes into to having that feeling of putting something together, accomplishing a great goal.
Defensive line class for this year, just curious. Last year's class seemed to have a lot of hype. Just curious what you think about this year's class coming in.
I would say not a lot of hype, but you're right. It's there's a lot of talented guys, and I think it's all the way through. Some really cool, unique talents with guys all the way through it. But there was a lot of. That's a good point. There's a lot of hype last year, but there's a lot of it's a good defensive draft actually.
Are you going on the assumption that Sean Shedd's not going to be back for the start of the season?
For the start of the season, I wouldn't think so. Probably, yeah. I mean, it's ACL late.
What does that do to cornerback at this combine for you, and maybe how does that push up the priority?
Well, yeah. I mean, it pushes it up. We have to, but not at the combine. I mean, we're evaluating everybody, so it's just a matter of watching to see how free agency goes. We had some young guys step up and do a really good job. There's a couple of guys that, that we re-signed that we're excited about too. So Deshaun's a great kid, and he's just, he's got really strong faith. He's just you'd want him to be your son, you know what I mean? And I don't know, you guys have been around him or how much you've been around him, but his mindset is like, hey, I'm going. So I say he's not going to be there right away. That's just me. He probably thinks he's gonna. He's crushing his rehab right now. So
Richard Sherman had kind of a different year maybe for him last year, and some of the off the field stuff maybe that happened, or the sideline stuff. From the GM perspective, does any of that change how you view his future with the team or anything?
No, I mean he's an elite player. I mean, I think everybody has bad days. Congratulations if you don't. But no, we love him. He's an elite player.
One more, sorry. Thoughts on Kyle Shanahan as a coach and then becoming a head coach?
Are you trying to rub in the divisional loss at Atlanta? That's cool. I get it. No, he's a phenomenal play caller. I don't know him personally. Just some of my good friends that know him brag about it. His football mind's off the charts.
Anything else? Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks, John.
Yep.